Nestled in the foothills of the Sangre de Cristo Mountains, 30 miles north of Santa Fe, Chimayo is a historical town known for the Hispanic weaving and flavorful chili. However, the town remains most popular because of El Santuario de Chimayo, a world-renowned shrine with legendary magical healing dirt. With a population of around 3,000 residents, Chimayo is home to a deep-rooted culture and rich history dating back to the 1800s. There are many legends of the mystical reasons of why Don Bernardo Abeyta was inspired to build El Santuario de Chimayo, but they all date back to 1810, where he allegedly experienced a sign from God. The most common story was he was walking along the hills of the Santa Cruz River, where he saw light beaming from the ground, where he discovered a cross. It took him 3 years to get permission from local priests to build the sanctuary to fulfill his vision. El Santuario de Chimayo remained in Don Bernardo Abeyta's family until 1929, where the Spanish Colonial Art Society in Santa Fe purchased the church for the purpose of donating it to the Archdiocese of Santa Fe. And in 1970, the church became a National Historic Landmark. For hundreds of years, tourism has grown exponentially, and while times may have changed, the town of Chimayo and the church has tried to maintain its simplistic lifestyle while adapting to the influx of visitors from all over the world seeking answers. Annually, over 300,000 pilgrims, curious travelers, and faith seekers come to experience the legendary spiritual powers of the dirt from a small hole in an adjacent room of the church known as El Pocito. While scientifically disproven, people with deep faith come to fill their plastic bags, also taking handfuls of the dirt as they exit the room to rub it on their bodies, hoping for its healing powers. For such a small town, Chimayo has quite the artistic community, and the Oviedo Gallery is a fine example of the unique art. Pat Trujillo Oviedo is a local historian and Chimayo native that can trace her ancestors back to the first settlers in the 1700s. With such passion and love for her hometown, Pat wrote a book on the history of Chimayo. Not only is Pat the local historian, she and her husband Marco are owners of a bed and breakfast. Pat also volunteers at El Santuario and is the president of the Chimayo Association of Businesses.
I was born to a family who was Hispanic. My father was from Chimayo, and his family was here. His family came here or settled in Chimayo in the early 1700s. My mother's family was Garcia, and she was from a little bit further down the road across the Rio Grande, and she was, her family, you could trace it back to the first colonists who came with Don Juan de Oñate in 1598. And so there was mostly Spanish, I was of Spanish descent. The Spanish came to this valley, to the valley within about a 20-mile radius in 1598, and they established the first settlements. But then in 1680, there was a Pueblo revolt where the different Pueblos in the area finally decided to rebel against the Spanish, and they took them all out. And the Spanish that survived moved down to El Paso, to the southern part of the state. And they remained there for about 12 years until they came back in. There was a group that came back to Santa Fe in 1692, headed with Don Diego de Vargas, and it was a peaceful re-entry. They came to see if they could make peace with the Indians again and reestablish what they had settled here before, and they were able to do that. Well, the first settlement after the re-entry, then was about 7 miles from where we are right now in Chimayo, in Santa Cruz de la Cañada, and that was the first settlement outside of Santa Fe that was established by Don Diego de Vargas, and 17 families that were of Spanish origin that had probably come through Mexico and then were given land around the Rio Grande, the valley. and that was the first settlement after the Pueblo Revolt. About 5 years, that was in 1710. And some of those families that came to Santa Cruz came a little bit further east and established a settlement here in Chimayo. And those were some of my ancestors.
Among other things that Pat and her husband Marco are involved in, they both share an interest in animal science. When they moved back to Chimayo, they started a breeding farm of livestock, including the mammoth donkey, Spanish colonial horse, and the churro sheep. On Palm Sunday, they use their donkeys to recreate the entrance of Jesus into Jerusalem. Being a volunteer and teacher at El Santuario, Pat is all too familiar with the legend of Don Bernardo Abeyta and the popularity of the pilgrimage.
It was a chapel that was built by a penitente named Bernardo Abeyta. This was in 1810. Bernardo was on a hill doing his Holy Week penances on a hill where they would each hill they'd go up and put a cross, like to emulate Calvary, where Jesus was crucified. And so that way he was at a Calvario doing penance, and he was doing this penance in the night, and he saw a light at the bottom. He looked down below towards a river, and he saw a light there. So when he went to investigate the light, he went and he unearthed a crucifix. And this, I can imagine that if he was meditating on the Passion of Jesus and then he finds a crucifix, it must have been a thoroughly mystical experience for him. So he decided that he wanted to build a church to honor that find. And after 3 years, after asking for permission, it took him 3 years to give him permission to finally build a chapel. And so it was a private chapel for many years, but people would come and visit the Santuario. Local people, they would go visit, and in the area of the Santuario, or in Chimayo, Chimayo was known, or Chimayo, the name Chimayo comes from the name of a hill that is actually behind the Santuario. The hill was named Chimayo, in Tsimayo, and it was Tewa for flaking stone. And so this hill was one of the sacred hills for the Tewa Indians, pueblos that were to the west along the Rio Grande. And to the Tewa Indians, this hill or this area had healing powers in the dirt. Well, when Bernardo Abeyta found this Esquipulas near the hill that the Indians would normally come and visit for healing, this Esquipulas also, coincidentally, in Esquipulas, Guatemala, the dirt is also sacred to the Mayans, and there's healing powers. So this was kind of a coincidental thing that he found an image that was from Guatemala here. And there's another story behind that. But anyway, the thing is that this area was also known to come to healing, to get healing. So people would make pilgrimages for centuries. They've been making pilgrimages to this area to get healing. But now that there's a chapel built, this has become even it's like exponentially increased the power of the healing power. So anyway, it wasn't until 1945 that there was actually, that the pilgrimages, the formal pilgrimages that are now known, started. One of the traditions that started here at the Santuario was visiting the Santuario during Lent. And when Lent starts, people decide that they want to make pilgrimages to the Santuario for one reason or another. And it can be very small local pilgrimages, or people can walk from Santa Fe, or which is about 30 miles, 90 miles apart. Some pilgrims walk maybe from states, but over several days.
Chimayo undergoes intense preparations for Holy Week as the town anticipates around 30,000 visitors. The locals depend heavily on volunteers for a smooth transformation of their hometown in order to welcome the pilgrims from all over. The streets of Chimayo slowly begin to get congested as Holy Thursday commences and the infrastructure is again put to the test. Parking becomes scarce. While roadsides become infested with parked cars, vendors begin to set up their tables and tents, preparing the religious items. Prisoners pick up trash, making the way for thousands of pilgrims, while the New Mexico Department of Transportation repaints markers on the highway while placing caution signs in order to ensure everyone's safety. Having learned lessons from all the many years of welcoming countless faith seekers, the town has realized the priority to provide the basic necessities, which are of vital importance. Safety is crucial, and the New Mexico State Police team up with the fire rescues and EMTs from the surrounding areas to provide pilgrims and locals a safe route to and from El Santuario.
The City of Santa Fe Police Department, the Los Alamos Police Department come in to offer their assistance to our local law enforcement, and then we bring in the Los Alamos Fire Department bike team to help with our EMS and fire coverage, as well as our local hospital ambulance service to assist with us as well. Overall, tomorrow, all staff combined will have about 45.
My husband has made one that it's in bronze. These are all bronze sculptures. And so the Hopis or the Kosharis are usually the ones that come out to set the stage of the ceremonial dances.
Pat gave us a tour on the Oviedo Gallery, showcasing her husband's unique talent and amazing take on local Native American art and religious symbols. Marco is a santero, which means a person who makes religious images. However, he has chosen to go beyond the traditional wood carvings and create them in a bronze sculpture. The Chimayo arts community has a long history of producing highly respected and sought-after pieces of art and Chimayo blankets.
Chimayo has always been kind of a destination for visitors because of the santuario, and also because it has world-renowned weavers of Chimayo blankets that in the late 19th century, it's the weaving industry kind of started, or the early 20th century started in Chimayo.
An award-winning weaver, Irvin Trujillo is the co-owner of Centinela Traditional Arts, a studio located just across the way from his sister Pat. A seventh-generation Rio Grande weaver, Irvin learned the craft at just 10 years old from his father. Learning from an oral instruction, he quickly learned the art of tapestry and shuttlework in designing blankets. In 1982, Irvin and his wife Lisa started a business selling Chimayo blankets with the help of Irvin's father. Today, their studio works with local weavers to produce different crafts, showcasing the many designs and styles. The art of weaving expresses the true Chimayo culture and continues to tell a timeless story. However, traditional Chimayo weavers are concerned that their craft is in jeopardy.
There's probably I would estimate about 100 weavers here in Chimayo that are making a living at weaving, and all of us are getting old. We're in our 60s. The dealers, there's 3 or 4 dealers here, and we're all in our 60s, and all of us are saying there's no young people, weaving. It can't survive at the level that it is right now. So it may become more valuable in the future. And there's a lot more pressure. There's a lot more pressure from the internet because it has exposed our work to other countries. And if I go to Santa Fe, most of the work in Santa Fe is from other countries. It's not from here in Chimayo. When we went to visit my grandmother in the winter months, we would stay with my aunt, and she would put some mattresses on the floor, and then she'd stoke the fire with coal and then some wood, and then she'd put a sheet over us, and then she'd start stacking these blankets over us. And the blankets that were made in my family, they weigh anywhere from 5 to 8 pounds. So she would stack, several. And there's a saying that I have in the book, no tantos, no tantos, and that means not so many, but during the morning, like about 3 o'clock when the fire went out, those blankets kept us warm. And that was the first exposure to weaving that I had as a kid. And I was told, you know, you're a 7th generation, but I didn't realize that they wove for all those generations. I learned that my father was an instructor during the Depression. He started to weave on this loom right here in 1927, and by 1932 he was commissioned to teach for the WPA project, to work teaching weaving, spinning, and dyeing. When my sister went to work as a waitress here in Chimayo at the restaurant, which opened in 1965, she left her bedroom open in Los Alamos, and my dad put this old loom in her room because it took almost the whole room, and he started to weave when he came home from work. And so I was going to school, grade school at that time, and I went to watch him because he was making a lot of racket, and I started watching him, and I actually stayed there because I was interested. And he finally asked me, well, do you want to learn? And I said, yeah. And because it seemed interesting to me, and I couldn't reach the loom, but what he did is he put a chair right in front of the loom, and I learned tapestry, which is one of the techniques for designing a blanket. And most people learn shuttle work, which is basically throwing the shuttle back and forth, and then they learn tapestry. And I learned tapestry first, and then later on I learned shuttle work. And that's basically what I do today. The Smithsonian in the 1990s, they chose Chimayo and Santa Clara Pueblo to kind of show those cultures. And it was the Museum of American History, and they bought a couple of my pieces and they had them on display, and it was about New Mexico and the multicultural aspect of that. And I guess, I don't know if they saw pieces, but the Museum of American Art, or American Art Museum at the Smithsonian came and they commissioned a rug for me, and so I wove that piece. And I don't know, I really don't know how it happened. I've just been weaving and trying to improve like that. And in 2007 I was nominated for a National Heritage Fellowship, and they give that, at that time they were giving it to 12 people in the United States a year. So it was a pretty big deal. It's about the best award you can get as a craftsman. I'm a member of the board of the High Road Artisans Association, and we're trying to get a trail designation so that people can visit the high road and look at the local art like that. A lot of art in the past was religious art, like carvings and stuff. For me, the weavings are somewhat of a religion because I'm putting my soul into the piece, and they have its own prayer that it goes where it's going to go.
While dawn breaks on Good Friday, pilgrims begin their journey to commemorate the crucifixion of Jesus Christ and make the long journey to El Santuario de Chimayo. Some dress and carry crosses in remembrance, while some travel solo, and others with friends or family to share the experience. There are many curious travelers not knowing what to expect, but they all have the determination and faith to see the journey to the end. Food vendors set up shop as they are ready for the crowds and anticipate big sales. The shops surrounding El Santuario have a constant clientele, buying souvenirs, religious items, and snacks. Visitors start to enter El Santuario early, and lines start to form, but the atmosphere is pleasant and joyful. The priests are outside of the entrance talking with pilgrims and travelers. The faces seen in the long line to El Santuario have a tiredness and a hope, with an expectancy of finding answers to their questions. As lunchtime approaches, the line at El Santuario grows and grows onto the road. Local media arrive to capture the moments and talk with the weary and devoted travelers who have already finished their pilgrimage. One of the pilgrims we spoke with was still trying to find the words on how he felt.
this is my first year doing the walk, and it's kind of interesting. It kind of makes sense now why people walk.
While the forecast is set for clear skies and a beautiful sunny day, the community plays a big role as they come together, setting up stations along the way for pilgrims by providing water, snacks, and moral support. However, the active tradition runs deep with certain families, as every year Good Friday is spent at El Santuario.
It's really like a fun thing for us because it's traditional for us, and yeah, we really like it a lot. And my family give out ibuprofen, everything, face wipes, books. They give out coloring books to kids, just to help people get through the day.
Honoring past relatives or friends, even praying for any current illnesses. The dirt from El Pocito brings comfort to pilgrims as they arrive to their destination.
Well, today we got up and we knew we wanted to do this pilgrimage, and we didn't get to do the big long walk, but we came and we waited and we walked a little ways, but yeah, and we wanted to get our dirt and come, and it's just such a magical place for us, so spiritual. We just feel so at peace, you know, with everything that goes on in your day-to-day life that you're so stressed about, and this place is just, it takes it all away.
The church is constantly busy. As a rotation of people are going in, many are coming out. Good Friday can be an all-day event at El Santuario. Many come in expecting to fully honor and reflect, while others go through El Santuario, collect their dirt, and are on their way. As nightfall sets on El Santuario, pilgrims still trickle in late into the evening to show their devotion and faith. And even though they are tired and sore, there is an air of happiness and goodwill that on this Good Friday, thousands set out on a journey for very different reasons. This is Carla Benavides reporting for Cultura. Nos vemos hasta la próxima vez.